Hello guys, welcome to our continuation of AWS Solution Architect. In this our session today, we are going to be looking at identity and access management. So what is our program for today? Our program for today is centralized on identity and access management. So we are going to start by discussing what identity and access management is. And then in our practical demonstration, we are going to see how we can create a user that is an IAM user, and then we add a policy to that user. So we are going to see what is policy, and then we are going to see what an IAM user is. Then we are going to also see what an IAM group is, and we are going to also add policy to an IAM group. And then we are going to follow one critical security model, or let me say a critical security requirement, which IAM actually respects by changing user groups. How can you change a user from one group to the other? And we see how the policies that are attributed to that user are behaving when we change users from one group to the other. We are going to discuss a bit about custom policy, because there are predefined policies by Amazon, and then there are policies that we can customize to fit our environment or our company or our account, whatever we want to do. Then we are going to see what password policy is all about in IAM. So this is our discussion for today. Let us get started and go directly to our demonstration board. So we first begin. What is IAM user? Okay, for short, IAM is called identity and access management. As the word says, identity and access management. That means it is a service in AWS that handles every login to AWS. As I said in our last class, you most of the times people always log in when practicing. You log in through your root user, and then you sign in. In real world, in company environments, you don't log in through your root user. You log in through your IAM user. Okay, so IAM is a federated user account. Like, you have your account. This is an account in an AWS. You have your account in a company. This is an account. This account like this handles production jobs, handles actually deployments of companies or your own company. It can be handling a production of your company or a production of other companies. So this account is actually very critical. So you would not like that anybody that has access to this account should go into this account, creating all the resources, deleting all the resources, just trying to demonstrate or practice in all the resources that are existing on AWS. You do not want that, because there are certain resources that are handling very, very sensitive data. So you want to restrict each and everybody to be confined into their own environment. Look at how big AWS is. This is how big AWS is. AWS is a mixture of so many services, and all those services are found in an account. You have maybe the compute service, you have maybe the S3 bucket, you have maybe the identity and access management, you have maybe the Lambda service, you have maybe the let me say the EKS service, you have maybe the ECS service. All these are services in AWS, right? All these are services in AWS. So you do not want to create an account and give access to everybody. And in real world, everybody does not work with all the services. It does. You cannot know all the services in AWS. I mean, there are so many of them. It is difficult. Let me not say you cannot know. It's difficult to master all the services of AWS. So your job might just be to create EC2 instances and link them with S3 buckets, and that is your job. Okay, so you should be confined with that your job. You are experienced there. You know how to manipulate with EC2. You know very well how to manipulate with S3. So they will create your account and confine it to AWS EC2 and AWS S3. You don't have anything to do with Lambda. You don't have anything to do with EKS. You don't know anything about that. All your own is EC2 and S3 bucket, and that is where you are confined. Okay, so that is what identity and access management is. So they create you an account in a sub account in an account and give you restricted access. That is all what we are going to be doing, creating accounts and giving restricted access to those accounts, and make sure that those accounts do not access all the services. We can still create an account and give it all the access to all these services, but in general terms, most of those accounts are owned by top managers. Okay, the IAM account that has access to all these services is owned by top management. It cannot be owned by normal engineers that are working within the organization. So that is IAM. So what is a policy? Now, the aspect of giving the access excuse me please, the aspect of giving the right to a particular service is called a policy. That means there is a policy for accessing S3 and EC2. That is called policy. Okay, this is a policy. So a policy is an access right given to an account. Okay, so if I can name this one policy 1, this is policy 1, and then I'll say policy 1 gives access to EC2 and S3, and I name this one policy 2. Policy 2 give access to might be EKS and might be let us just say Lambda. Okay, policy 2 gives access to EKS and Lambda. You see, so policies are actually the rights that are given to an account. A policy is a right that is given to an account. I think you should write that. A policy is a right that is given to an account. Okay, and these rights can differ. Policy 1 can be stronger than policy 2 depending on how I set policy 1. I can decide and set a policy 1 to be all these 3, and I decide and set policy 2 to be only this one. So policies differ. Okay, so there are predefined policies by AWS, and there are policies that we are going to create. That is why we talked about custom policy. These are policies that we are going to be creating by ourselves. Okay, so we have talked about what IAM user is, so we know what policy is. So each policy that we are going to create, we are going to attribute it to a user. So policy attribution. So when we create a policy, what you're going to do is you are going to also create a user. When you create a policy, you are going to create a user. This is a physical user, maybe Tom just joined the company, and you are going to create a policy for Tom. Okay, so when you create this policy, you are going to link the policy to Tom. Okay, this policy is going to be linked to Tom, because you cannot create a policy, create a user Tom, and then you don't link. Okay, you can create a policy, create a user, and then you link, as well as Tom can be linked to this policy, and for some time Tom can be removed from that policy and linked to a different policy. Tom can now be linked to this policy, or Tom can be linked to this policy. Tom can be linked to any policy that you want. So attributing policies is another aspect. So in the creation of IAM journey, so what are we going to have? We are going to have, the first thing is we are going to create a user. Then the second thing is we are going to attribute there is a predefined policy created, managed policies created. These are policies that are already created by AWS. Okay, these are generally policies that have been created by AWS, but we can either attribute managed policy or we attribute our own created policy. So we are going to now attribute the policy. So that is what we are going to do. So you create a user, you either give the user a managed policy or you either create your own policy and then you attribute whatever policy to the user. These are the 3 steps that we are going to carry out. All right, let's get to our board and start creating things. So you just come to your service, you go to you type IAM, Identity and Access Management. It will come out. So when you come to IAM, you see users, right? You see users. You can come to create a user. You give a username. Maybe I'm going to give a username Jim. Jim is our new user. First of all, you go to create user, please. Then you come to Jim. That will be our new user. They'll ask you that provide user access to the AWS Management Console. It is optional. Yes, I want Jim to access the AWS Management Console. Okay. Now they'll come here. Are you providing console access to a person? Specify a user identity center. That is, you should specify a user identity center. Okay, they'll say we recommend that you use identity center to provide console access. Okay, so I just want to create an IAM user. Okay, I just want to create an IAM user. Now here you are going to be asked to auto generate a password. Do you want AWS to auto generate you a password, or you want to generate a password yourself? I want to create my own password. I want to give my own password, and in this one I'm going to give a password. My password is training123. That is a password that I am giving. I'm starting with a capital letter and I am ending with small letters with figures. So I'm giving training123. Let's keep the password there. Okay, the user is Jim. Take close look at the user. The user is Jim. Let's write the user. Our user is Jim. And Jim's password is training123. Okay, we go down, and then users must create a new password at next sign in. Recommended. So I want Jim to create when he signs in, he creates a new password. Okay, because I don't want that the password that I give to Jim, I know the password, I know that particular password. So I'm going to give Jim the opportunity that when he signs in, he should change his own password. Okay, so this one is highly recommended because it is password. You don't want to set a password for Jim and you know the password also. It is not recommended by security. That is, those are not good security principles. You have to actually give Jim the right to change his password when he logs in for the first time. So we go ahead. Now we are with the add user group. These are permissions. This add user group will come to that is actually our second topic that we are going to handle, which is user groups. So it is actually simply asking us if we are adding Jim to a particular user group, or this user group must already have policies, or we are copying permission from somebody to give to Jim, or we want to attach policies directly to Jim. Remember, what are policies? Remember what I said about policies. A policy is actually a right that is given to a user to access a service. A policy is a right given to a user to access a service. A permission. They are giving you that permission to access this service. So here they are asking us, do you want to copy a policy, add Jim to a group that has a particular policy, or do you want to copy the policy from some other user and give to Jim? That means some rights have been given to some users and you just want to copy those rights and give to Jim, or do you want to attach new policies to Jim directly? I want to attach, this is the first user we are creating. I want to attach new policies to Jim directly. I just want to give Jim his own policy, right? And in this our situation, what are we going to give to Jim? Let's give Jim, let's say, access to S3 bucket. Let's search for S3 bucket and see if we can give Jim access to S3 bucket. So when I click S3, you will see that a host of S3 bucket policies are. So what are these policies actually? These are predefined policies that AWS has created. Okay, there is S3 DMS Redshift role, there is S3 object lambda role. You have so many different policies that AWS has created for S3. That means different things that you can do inside S3. But I want to give Jim full access in S3. See, Amazon S3 full access. That means all these services are given to Jim. Yes, because Jim is an experienced S3 guy, so I want to give him full access to S3. I give full access to S3 to Jim, and then I come to next. Now when I come here, you see Jim has full access, right? And Jim will be able to change his password. These are the two accesses that Jim is having. These are the two policies that Jim is having. The first policy that Jim has is he has full access to S3 bucket, and the second policy that Jim is having is he has the right to change his password. Okay, Jim has the right to change his password. You see, these are permission policy. So you can give people more policies or you can give them lesser policies. All right, so we come right down and we say create user. Okay, Jim has been created as a user. So can we log into Jim, and how can we log into Jim as a user? So generally, in order to log into Jim as a user, we'll copy this console link and send to Jim. Okay, we can copy this console link and send to Jim. We can actually email sign in instructions to Jim and just click here and email his sign in instructions. So his username is Jim, and then his password is here. We can copy it and put it somewhere and send to him. So let's copy his console sign in. This is the link that we are going to type and then we send to Jim. And then his password, copy his password, console sign in, password, which we already know, and then username Jim, which we already know, right? These are the various things that Jim needs to have. Username, which is Jim. All right, now it is time for us to log in as Jim. So how do we log in as Jim? We go now and we want to log in. You do not log in again as user, you log in now as IAM user. I'm sure for my AWS students you already know, because you always log in as IAM user for the user that I've created for you. So when you want to log in, you log in now as Jim. We know that Jim has access only to what? Jim has access only to S3, so they are asking you for a 12-digit number here. So where should you have this 12-digit number? Come to your code here. You will see that the link here has a 12-digit number. Okay, you just copy the 12-digit number from here, and then you come to your account, and then you paste your 12-digit number. Right, when you paste the 12-digit number, you continue. Now they will ask you for your username and your password. Okay, now they know the account which you want to log in. So what is your username? Your username is Jim. And what is your password? Password is training123. Okay, I sign in. So when I get in for the first time, normally what will happen? Jim needs to create a password. What is the old password? Training123. And then what is my new password now? I can say my new password will be teaching123. I write it again, teaching123. Okay, I confirm my password. Now I'm able to sign in as Jim. Okay, so I am signing into AWS account as Jim. Remember, what is Jim having? What did we give to Jim? We gave Jim access only to S3. So if Jim comes to S3, Jim has full access to create a bucket. Jim can create a bucket. Okay, let's try to create a bucket with Jim. There is a bucket that is existing. Let's see whether Jim can delete that bucket. Can Jim? Let us first of all guess and ask ourselves, can Jim be able to delete this bucket? Can Jim be able to delete this bucket? The guess is Jim has been given full access to S3. So we should be expecting that Jim should be capable of deleting a bucket if he has full access to S3 bucket. This bucket was never created by Jim, but can he delete it? Yeah, we should be expecting that Jim could be able to delete. If he can see it, then he can actually delete it. Okay, if Jim can see the bucket, then and he has full access, then we believe he can delete it. Let's try. We delete the bucket, and then we copy the bucket name. And voila, Jim is able to delete the bucket, and Jim can also create a bucket. Jim has the right to do anything inside S3 bucket. Okay, now let us go to EC2. Was Jim given the access to EC2? Let us just go to EC2 and verify. Jim was never given access to EC2. Now when Jim enters EC2, this is what happens. You see what is happening? API server, API error, API error, API error. Jim has no access to see an EC2 machine running. Jim, you are not authorized to perform this operation. User Jim is not authorized to perform this operation. So if you are in a company and you want to have access to a particular resource and you see this, if the company actually wants you to work on those resources, then they will tell you that they will actually give you access to those resources. I was in a company, I call it a very bizarre company, where they gave me access to the AWS account, and they did not give me access to the various services that I will be working on. And their own way of tracking my activities is actually me coming to ask for access to resources. For them, they will know that I am working only when I come, and then I ask my higher manager that please, I don't have access to S3 bucket. what is happening before he gives me access to S3 bucket. When I want to work with Lambda, I'll come and say I'm not having access to Lambda. Then he gives me access to Lambda. To them, it was like some sort of trying to understand whether I do understand the various resources that I have to work on, and whether I am actually trying to work on those resources, which to me is rubbish and useless. Because if you hire somebody to work on particular resources, just create his account and give him all the accesses to that particular resource. Okay, that makes some sense. So Jim would not have access to EC2. So what have we done? We have actually created a user, and we have actually attributed a policy to that user. And what type of policy did we attribute to the user? We attributed an AWS managed policy. We are not the one that created that policy of S3 full access. We are not the one that created the policy. So we gave the user a managed policy, right? Managed policy was already there. We just attributed that policy to the user that we have created. All right. So in our next module, we are going to be seeing how we can create not a user now. We can create groups of users. Okay, we are creating groups of users. So let's actually go on ahead and create two groups. Okay, let's go ahead and create two groups. And can we delete our Jim user? Yeah, you can delete. Do we need Jim again? Definitely not. We do not need Jim again. So let's go to IAM, and we'll go to users, and we see Jim. We can delete Jim. Type Jim. Bye. Okay, Jim is deleted. All right. Now we want to create a group of users. Most of my AWS DevOps students are inside this group. Okay, they are inside this group. So let me show you guys now how I created your group of users. Right. In order to create a group, you just come to user groups. Why is a group very important? A group is important because generally, in real sense, we do not create one user per policy. It is not done like that. Generally, you do not create one user per policy. What happens is, in an AWS account, there is what we call teams, right? You can either be in a DevOps team. You can either be in a let's say developers team. You can either be in a SOC team, like a security team, right? This might be the DevOps, or let's start with the programmers, and then it always moves like that, DevOps, and then it always moves to maybe the SOC, or the Security Operations Center. This is where the people that are actually intervening with all security happenings in the company. When there is a breach, or when there is an intrusion, or when there is an alert, the Security Operations Center is the one that picks up that alert. When they pick up that alert, they send it to DevOps. DevOps try to see what is happening with the alert. If DevOps cannot handle, if the alert is not at the workflow, DevOps sends the alert to programmers. Maybe the alert actually touched but the core programming language of the system. So that is how generally most organizations, their workflow are. Now, you do not create each user per himself. So all programmers may have the same policy. So instead of granting policy to a user, we grant policy to programmers. All these programmers have the same policy. All DevOps engineers have the same policy, and all SOC analysts have the same policy. Okay, so we are going to create a programmers group, and then we are going to attach a policy to that programmer group, and then we are going to create a user now and put inside the programmers group. Okay, that is what we are going to do right now. So our steps are, we are create group, right? Attach policy to that group, and then create user, and then attach user to group. Attach user to group. Those are that is our task 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are the tasks that we are going to perform. Create group, attach policy to group, create user, attach user to group. And when you attach user to group, therefore that user already has the policy that you attach to that group. Okay, it is as easy as possible. So you attach a policy to a group so that anybody inside this group have access to that policy that you attach to the group. So let's go ahead. So we are in, come to user groups, and then you come to create group, and then the group we are creating is programmers, right? And then in programmers, we want to attach a particular user to the group programmer, right? We don't yet have a user right now, so we are going to allow that for now. So we come now to attach permission. So we have given the name of our group, so we are adding a policy directly to the group. So let us add, all programmers should have access to EC2, right? Because they are going to be actually working with EC2. So let's give them EC2 full access. Let's give them EC2 full access, Amazon EC2 full access, right? They are going to committing their code, and then they are going to be entering into that repository and seeing what is happening in that repository. Okay, we give them EC2 full access. So to the group programmers, we are giving EC2 full access. All right, and then we are creating the group. The group is created. All right, we see the group programmers created. So we create another group. In this group now, we are going to say the group is simply DevOps testing. This is a group that we are just creating now, DevOps testing. So for the DevOps guys, these are guys that always have more autonomy, so they'll always have access to EC2. Let's give them access to EC2 because they will set up their Jenkins, and they will need that EC2 to function with Jenkins and the rest. Okay, so let's give them EC2 access. So this is actually the job of somebody in a company whom they would like to hire you to be giving accesses to these people like this. So give you EC2 access to DevOps, and then what do we give you again? DevOps guys, you will always work with things like let me say you have EC2 access, might be you have S3 access. DevOps guys will always have S3 access. Let's give them S3 full access. We give them S3 full access. And what can we give them? Let's give them Lambda. DevOps guys will always need sometimes they'll work with Lambda. We'll try to run jobs that Lambda needs to run. So let's give them access to Lambda. What are we doing? Giving them access to Lambda. So let's see, Lambda full access. Okay, I think that's that for DevOps. No, they are the ones to configure Route 53 and so much, because they will be working with everything Route 53. So let's give them access to Route 53. Give them Route 53 full access. Cool. So generally for DevOps guys, they will have so much access. We just do this for demonstration. So let's create a group. So we have created DevOps testing, and then we have created programmers. Okay, now let us create a user. Where are we? We have created the group. We have created group, and then we have attached policies to that group. Let us now create a user. So we come now, we create our user, a new user. Let's call this user Paul. Paul is a new user that just joined the company, and we want to give Paul provide access to AWS user account. Paul is just a user, and Paul is going to have a custom password that we are going to give him. It will be Paulo 123. So that is the password for Paul. Paulo 123. Let us give Paul's password, and then yes, Paulo will have to change his password, and we go ahead. So now here, remember that at first we came and we took attached policies directly, but we are not more taking attached policies directly because Paul is a developer that has just joined our company. So instead of attaching policies directly to Paul, we are going to put Paul in the programmers forum. Okay, we are going to remain with add user to group. We put Paul in the programmers forum, and we go to next. And then now we can be able to create Paul. Paul has access to the programmer's policy, and Paul will change his password. So we create. Good. Paul has been created. So as Paul has been created, we copy. Generally our 12 number remains the same. So we come now to, remember that we deleted Jim, but Jim was here. So if we refresh now, Jim, you were deleted from the company, so you can no more have access to the company. So if you were working in the company, sometimes before they sack you from a company, the first thing they do is they delete your account. When they delete your account and suspend it, you come to in the morning, you are unable to log into your account. You ask HR why, they will send you a message that you need to talk with HR and all the like. It's just know that you have been whitelisted from the company. Okay, so we have to log in. We have our what are they asking? 12-digit accounts. Yeah, we have our 12-digit accounts. We can log in, and then we have our user is Paul, and the password is Paulo. I will spell things wrongly, so let me just copy and paste. Password is Paulo 123. Okay, definitely I have to change the password from Paulo 123 to Paulo 1234. Paulo 1234. Okay, change password. Never. What happened? Maybe I did not write something very well. Paulo, new password. Paulo 1234. And then up to 8. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Now let me use teachers 1 2 3 teachers 1 2 3. Okay, I got in. So the new password now is from Polo to teachers 1 2 3. All right, so Paul has access to what? Paul has access to EC2. So if we come to EC2 instances, and Paul can actually create an instance, Paul can launch an instance, Paul can do anything. He has full access to EC2. But is Paul having access to S3? Let's see, can Paul have access to S3? Paul is a programmer, so Paul is not having any access to S3. So Paul cannot create an S3 bucket. Let's try and see if Paul can actually create an S3 bucket. Did we give Paul access to create an S3 bucket? Let's see. New bucket, Paul's bucket, and ACL enabled. Let's just give public access, and then we confirm. Create bucket. So the name Paul's bucket is already existing. So there must be a Paul somewhere who has created a bucket called Paul's bucket generally, of course. So when we try to create a bucket, fail to create bucket. To create a bucket, the S3 create bucket permission is required. So Paul is not having that permission to create S3 bucket. We never gave Paul that permission to create S3 buckets. Okay, S3 buckets are given the permission to developers, to DevOps to create. So I'm not saying that that is a standard. It matters to your company. There might be a developer who is having DevOps qualities and is also having SOC qualities. He has all the permissions. It all depends. This thing does not have any specific specifications. Okay, you can do anything that you want. All right, so Paul cannot create any S3 bucket. Now let's create another user, and we are going to put the user in the DevOps. We're going to put that user in the DevOps group. The new user that we are creating is create a new user. The user's name is Ken. Ken is a DevOps engineer. Just want to create an IAM user. Custom password. I'll give Keneto. Keneto 1 2 3. Let me see it. Good. Alright. So Keneto will have to change. Now let me just accept for now, but it's not recommended. Please let me just allow Keneto 1 2 3 to be there. That means we can log in with Keneto 1 2 3. Okay, I give Keneto there. Remember, I'll allow add user group, and I'll give him to DevOps. And then now next. Everything about Keneto is okay here. So you see Keneto is having access to DevOps and no access to change his password. So Keneto will not change his password. That's what we have set. Create user. So Keneto has been created. Okay, so let us sign out of from Paul and log into Keneto. So to sign into Keneto, we have our accounts. This number does not change, please. Insofar as it is for the same account, it will not change. It's just a number to show you, to tell you which account you want to access. And then we said it was Keneto 123. So we can log in now and will not be required to change the password. Okay, we are not required to change any password. Now Keneto has access to all the services. Okay, Keneto is a DevOps engineer. Keneto has access to all the services. Keneto can create S3 bucket. Keneto can do certain things. Okay, if we go to S3, we'll discover that Keneto can do everything in S3. If you go to EC2, Keneto can also create EC2 machines. Okay, now this is what we want to do, and this is where we are talking about. Take a look. We are changing user groups. Remember, Keneto can create everything. Keneto has more users, more powers than Paul. All right, Ken has more powers than Paul. But what if we switch Ken and Paul? Now Ken is here. Ken is here as a DevOps, and Paul is here as a programmer. All right, what if we take Paul and bring here, and take Ken and bring here? Generally, if we do that, Paul is going to have more user accessibility than Ken. Okay, which is but normal. If we switch sides, that's Ken comes to Paul, and Paul comes to DevOps. Ken comes to programmers, and Paul comes to DevOps. What will happen is that the rights that programmers have, Ken will now have, and then the rights that DevOps had, Paul will now have. Okay, that is what happens, and this is a very strict security measure, because in companies there is something that we call promotion with credentials. They do not promote you and then allow you to take all the credentials that you had as a junior person and move with it as a senior person. There are some credentials as a junior guy that the senior guys are not having, so you should not have those credentials. Okay, you should have the credentials of the senior person only. It doesn't mean that you are senior, you are going to have all the credentials that juniors have. Sometimes some juniors have some credentials that you seniors you do not have. Okay, and if they demote you, like you were a manager, or like Ken was a DevOps, if they say, Ken, you are now a programmer, it might not be actually demoting, it should just be changing of rules. And it is better for security reasons that when they change rules, even though you, Ken, knew everything about S3, knew everything about maybe Lambda, but you will no more have any job to do with S3 and Lambda. So your job now will be with EC2 instances. So work with EC2 instances. So they will limit your role to EC2 instances. It's not because you know how to work with a particular resource that they must give you access to those resources. The reason for this is because there is a particular attack in the cyber industry called the social attack, right? Social aspect attack. What is that? It is an in-house attack that they will attack, lay hold of maybe the family of a worker, and then tell the worker that we have sent an email to your desk. You just need to click that email. If you don't click that email, your family is at risk. We have your wife, we have your children, your family is at risk. So if they send you that type of an email, a message, anybody will always, first of all, shiver. Anybody will try to tremble, and in order to save their family, they would like to click the email that they have sent. And when they click that email, what will happen? It is a phishing email. That email is going to execute a particular script in their machine, which will take hold of all the services of the company, and the company will have to pay money to restore their services, right? So this this is that aspect of don't give everybody full access to everything, trying to limit that social attack, that if an employee is compromised, a particular section should be damaged and not all sections should be damaged. So if you are able to explain all this and explain why federated accounts are important and why IAM accounts should be the way they are, then you are on the right track. Okay, so let's change Tom from Ken from DevOps to, we know all these, we know his password is what? It was this is Paul's password. So Ken's password, let's copy Ken's password. The username is Ken, password is Kenito123. okay, good. All right, now we want to come into groups. Let's go into groups. We enter our programmers group. We'll see one user in our programmers group. We click on Paul. What do? We remove Paul. Paul is removed from programmers. That means Paul does not have, at this particular moment, Paul does not have any access to any service, because Paul is just floating. Paul is not having any access to any service. Okay, Paul is just simply floating, does not belong to DevOps. When you come to DevOps, you do not see Paul. When you come to programmers, you will not see Paul. Paul is just floating, so Paul cannot have any access to any group. So now we go now to DevOps, and then we add Paul in DevOps. We come to DevOps, we say add users. We can now say we can add Paul to DevOps. Now Paul is being added now to DevOps, and as Paul is added to DevOps, what do we do with Ken? We remove Ken, and when we remove Ken, we go back to programmers, and then we add Ken to programmers. So we have switched rules. Take Paul and send to DevOps, take Ken and send to programmers. They have switched. So each and every one goes where the group is and take control of the group. That is what we have just done. All right, and that completes this one, changing user groups. Okay, changing user groups, which is a very strategic security practice that must be done. When you update a user from one team to another, you should change his group and make sure that all the credentials are given to him. The ones that he had are removed and the new ones are given to him. Don't keep adding access to users unless they actually need them. All right, so that's that. And then we come down now to IAM custom policy. So what is IAM custom policy? Now all throughout we have been adding users. We have been adding users to giving them policies that have been pre-generated by AWS. Now we are going to create our own policy, because you remember we just add S3 full access. I mean, he has access to everything S3. We have EC2 full access, have access to everything EC2, but we can reconfine that access and try to say that no, you do not have full access to EC2. You can actually see EC2 instances, but you cannot create them, or you can actually like enter into create EC2 instances, but you cannot delete them, something like that. That is our own policy that we are creating now. Those are our own personal policy permissions that we are creating. So policy is a permission, an authorization that is given to you, so we can create how that authorization is. That is what we are going to do with IAM custom policy. All right, so let us go, and then we go to policies. or come to policies, you see all these are managed policies. That means they are AWS policies. These are not policies that we create. All these are AWS policies. All right, these are not our policies. So if we want to create our own policy, we go to create policy. We'll come to create policy. Now we can say choose a service for which you want to create your policy. Which particular service is your policy creating for? Well, I want to create a policy for, these are AWS services. We can choose any service to create our policy. There are so many services that you can decide which one to create your policy to, right? So I would actually like that we should create a policy for EKS. EKS is Elastic Kubernetes Service. All right, let's create a policy for EKS. So we come down now. Well, we want to create a policy for EKS. So you can say that your policy is actually EKS actions. These are all EKS actions. If you wanted all EKS actions, then why were you creating the policy? You should have just given EKS full policy, right? So definitely, if you are creating your own policy, you should have specific particular actions that you want. So under list, you want the person to list entries, to list associated access policies, to list Fargate policies, to list things that belongs to EKS. You can give him list some things, but do not list some things. So AWS will not know which things you want that particular person to list and which things you do not want. So you are the one now to create that your policy here. All right. So for list, I'll just say the person can list all, and then maybe the guy is a developer working with Kubernetes. I'll just say, okay, the guy can write all. If you have list, then you should have write. Okay, you should have that, but you should not tag, but which is weird, because if you have list and write, you should tag. So let's just consider that this guy is not a DevOps guy. He's some sort of a monitoring guy, and if he's a monitoring guy, then we should not give him write authority. Should not give him write authority. We should just give him maybe list authority. He can be able to see things inside there, right? And then he can be able to read them. So this guy is just a monitoring guy. He can list every port, and he can actually see and read things that are happening in inside there. So let's accept this one for now, and then we go to next. We are creating, remember, we are creating a policy, right? We are creating a policy. Okay, next. What are we required to do? Okay, yeah, forgot. So under resources, we have listed the various actions that can be carried out. Now the next thing is, we want it to be specific access, any in this account, right? In this account. So we give them the specific aspects in this account, not in any other account. So we just give them in this account. Good. Then we go to next. Now here you can give a policy name. Let's put it EKS control policy. EKS control policy. Description, you can write any description. Policy for monitoring. This guy is somebody that is using Grafana and Prometheus maybe and other like. policy for monitoring, it is an EKS service. Yeah, we are good to go. We create our policy. Valid characters, it is all in capital letters. Okay, let's put it in small letters. And policy for monitoring. Or monitoring policy, whatever. You can decide your own name. Okay, our policy has been created. Okay, so what have we done? We have created a policy. Okay, so right now we can go now to our groups, and then we say, okay, for these two people, which group is going to manage EKS? Right, we see that both DevOps can manage EKS. So let us attribute the EKS policy to DevOps. So we open our DevOps, right? Go to permissions. There you come to add permissions, attach policy, right? This one is create inline policy. So we want to attach policy. We have already created a policy, so we want to attach a policy. Remember your policy name. What was your policy name again? EKS, was it EKS monitoring? It's monitoring something. Policy for monitoring, that was your policy, right? Policy for monitoring. So this is it. This is a policy that you want to attach. So you attach the policy. So you can see that this is customer managed policy. All these are AWS managed policy. This is customer managed policy. So when you come to searching to attach policies, permissions, you will then search for your policy that you've created, and the policy will come out. So mind the name that you gave to your policy. It is the name that you are going to type here, and then you search for it. The name will come out, and then you select it, and you attach the policy now to the group. So right now, all individuals that are in the DevOps group are having access to EKS. They can actually read EKS. They can actually monitor EKS services. They can actually do some sort of entries with EKS. Okay, but they cannot delete and they cannot write anything. All right, they can just see, list, and read. Okay, so that is how you create. That is how you create a policy, and that is how you attach the policy to a group. All right, we have done with this. We are 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 done with this. We have created our own particular policy, and we have attached that our policy that we have created to a particular group. Now we want to see IAM password policy. What is a password policy? A password policy is just what we call rules and regulations that you set that your password must follow. For example, we can say that our password must have these characteristics. We should say maybe our password should first and foremost must be 8 characters. That is the first thing. Our password must be 8 characters, and the second thing is our password must have capital letter, one capital letter, at least one capital letter, and it must start with a capital letter, and maybe our password must have special character like dollar, percentage, or any of these special characters. Our password must have it. So you can give specifications on how your password must be. So how do we do that? When you are creating your user, there is a place called account settings. When you come to account settings, you will see password policy. All right, you see password policy. On the password policy, here is where you are going to come and define, customize your policy. You will decide here. These are the default policies that we have by AWS. The password must be 8 characters. It must have an uppercase, must have a lowercase, it must have a number, it must have a non-alphanumeric character. So this is AWS define. You can define your own custom. So can I say my password should have 5 characters? AWS accepts. Can I say it should have 4 characters? It depends on what you want to create. Okay, you should decide. So but your password, the longer it is, the safer it is. So you can decide on how your users create their password. In most companies, they will always tell you that your password should be at least 12 characters long. Okay, and they will tell you that the password should at least require at least one uppercase from A to Z, at least require lowercase from A to Z, at least require one number and a special character. All these are various things that are always being required from the company. Other requirements, you can decide and say that this password will not remain forever. Okay, you say this password is going to expire every after 3 months, which is something that should be done, because when you keep on recycling password, for example, somebody can be sent out of the company and you forget to reset his password, and it happens, shit happens, just forget like that to reset his password. So you just put the password should be reset every after 3 months or 2 months or whatever. Okay, you can put 60 days, you can put whatever thing you want here. So you put your password to expire, for administrators to reset, all users to change their own password. You decide on all these, prevent password reuse. So you can say that when your password expires, you do not use the same password again. So you are going to use but a different password. That means preventing password reuse. So these are all custom password policies that while creating somebody's account or after created somebody's account, you can decide now and you set all these modalities. When you set all these modalities, when it happens, the people will always request a new password from you. So as an IAM manager, you will always know, you should always know all these and know how to meet up to your password policies. So IAM users are generally security measured users. Okay, so with that, we finish our program for today. We have covered the various major topics of IAM. Let's see what we have for tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to have we are finished with IAM policy, custom policy, password policy. So tomorrow we are going to talk about multi-factor authentication. We are going to talk about command line interface. We are going to see it in Linux and in Windows. Command line interface both in Linux and in Windows. Yeah. Then we are going to see what IAM rules are. This topic we are not going to treat it because it has no need for you. I've never seen it in the industry being used, so I'm going to eliminate it. So tomorrow we might finish with everything IAM, and then we start with VPC. We start with VPC, which is going to carry us about 4 classes for VPC, and then 2 more classes, and now we are done. So we are remaining with about 6 classes to go. So guys, put more efforts, be more energized, be more insisting, and we are going to get through gradually, surely, and steadily. All right, so guys, practice so much, and we are going to meet in our tomorrow's session. See you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.